Good afternoon to you. 306 here at News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up, Rob Law is with us. He's with the America First Policy Institute, and we talked to him about what is going on right now in Texas as that state tries to get control of the out-of-control border. A lot of news on that. I've got whiplash from all of the headlines. Julie Jamin will be with us here at 4 o'clock. She is an 80-year-old woman who was a member of her local YMCA. Well, that is until a man started using her locker room, and then they banned her for complaining about it. We'll talk to her about that. James Lynch is here from National Review at 5 o'clock, and Alfonso Aguilar joins us at 5:30. We talked to Alfonso about the Hispanic vote and why it's heading towards Trump. You can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630 WMAL. A big House Oversight Committee hearing today as former Biden family business partners are revealing the details of, yes, Joe Biden's corrupt arrangement to guide his family's business, to help them deliver U.S. policy in turn for enriching the Biden family. This is a story that you are very familiar with now. But Democrats are trying desperately to keep it from going public, still, even at this late date, and are doing everything they can to kick sand up into the eyes of the American people about it. I'm going to quickly get to some audio here with you. James Comer is the chairman of the Oversight Committee, and he points out that, as Biden family business partners were testifying today, they left an open seat for one person who should have been there. That's Hunter Biden. Remember, Hunter is the one who said, I want to publicly testify. I want to publicly testify. And they said, well, you don't get to pick the way you do this. You've got to do a behind closed doors deposition first. After that, yes, you'll have public testimony. And so they compelled him. They got him to do the behind closed doors deposition. And then public testimony? Well, that was supposed to be today. Hunter, once again, said, up yours to Congress. Here's James Comer today.
I want to touch on the fact about the absent seat in the middle. Hunter Biden has chosen not to attend today's proceedings. I've given Mr. Biden exactly what he asked for before his deposition. It's clear that Hunter Biden knows his testimony would not withstand public scrutiny. Joe Biden has not been truthful about his participation in schemes to sell access and influence. And today's witnesses will show the American people a side of the story that the president and his allies on this side of the aisle are eager to hide.
Donald Trump's trade advisor, Peter Navarro, reported to jail this week for not appearing before Congress. Hunter Biden can do it with a reckless abandon. I hope the Republicans will actually make a criminal referral here. They put a little banner on his desk that says Hunter Biden, but maybe you could go a little further than just the little tent on the desk. Maybe a criminal referral is in order. Doesn't mean the Justice Department will do anything with it, but boy, he deserves one. He's been telling Congress to pound sand for some time. Here's Jason Smith. He joined the hearing today.
We have testimony from multiple witnesses that Joe Biden was the brand. He knew what his son and brother were doing and did nothing to stop it. That alone makes him complicit in a scheme to make money off of his public service. But he was not just complicit. He was, as one of today's witnesses has testified, an enabler of this activity. The evidence of the two IRS whistleblowers who came to the Ways and Means Committee has been affirmed by volumes of material provided to Congress, by the testimony of others, and even by the Department of Justice, who finally brought charges against Hunter Biden that mirror those called for by the IRS investigators. The evidence obtained shows that, one, Joe Biden met with his son's business partners on multiple occasions. He used an alias.
And those IRS whistleblowers revealed that the feds were stopped from investigating anything involving Joe. No questions about Dad. No looking into the big guy. They weren't allowed to do that. They reported that to Congress. Democrats continue to insist there's no evidence Joe Biden was involved in any of this. Meanwhile, all of the firsthand witnesses, all of the people who saw them up close, the Bidens, that is, they say, oh, yeah, Joe was definitely involved.
To exchange dozens of emails with his son's bookkeeper. He took official government action that suspiciously coincided with those meetings and correspondence. The connections between Joe Biden and his son's business practices extended even to the Biden 2020 campaign. At the height of the Democrat primary, Kevin Morris, a Hollywood lawyer who met Hunter Biden at a Joe Biden campaign fundraiser.
Yeah, they were longtime friends. They just met at a fundraiser for Joe.
Paid off Hunter Biden's tax liabilities because there was, in his words, quote,
yes,
risk personally and politically.
Imagine if we had a news media. Imagine, how much attention those details would get. That seems like a big lead, right? That's a big item. And nothing's crickets from them or an effort to try and destroy this story. No, Joe's fine. There's no evidence. Tony Bobulinsky says there's evidence, and he was one of the witnesses today.
Yet the same people preaching this mantra know better. They continue to lie directly to the American people without hesitation and remorse. Rep. Dan Goldman and Jamie Raskin, both lawyers, and Mr. Goldman, a former prosecutor with the SDNY from New York, will continue to lie today in this hearing and then go straight to the media to tell more lies.
I am so here for Tony Bobulinsky just ripping the gloves off. Bobulinsky woke up this morning and chose violence. He said, you know what? I'm going in there and I'm just going to give it to them right to their face. And in Goldman and Raskin, they barely had a chance to even speak by the time Bobulinsky was making these remarks. He said, both of those men will lie to you, and then after they're done lying in here, they're going to go lie to the media. That's Tony Bobulinsky. He's one of the witnesses today. And he's calling it like he sees it, which is accurate.
Hunter Biden's defense attorney, Abby Lowell, weaponizes letters to Congress to try to smear my name.
Mr. Chairman.
The cold hard facts.
Raskin's very upset now. Raskin, it took a moment. He was so stunned. That was a metaphorical gut punch for him, so he didn't know what to do. Now he's trying to interrupt Tony Bobulinsky. Point of order.
Mr. Chairman.
In an attempt to save his powerfully connected client and his father. I challenge Mr. Lowell to make those claims on national television so he can be held accountable for his lies. Prior to my
Bobulinsky barreling forward.
Successful business career, I was an officer in the United States Navy. At Navy's Elite Naval Nuclear Power Training Command, I later served as the command's chief technology officer.
Proceed. I apologize for the disruption from the...
Okay. Am I supposed to say it's my time, Mr. Raskin?
Yeah. But please, Mr. Bobulinsky, please
okay.
Come to order. Mr. Bobulinsky, please proceed.
Okay.
Please proceed. I apologize for the disruption from the minority.
Okay.
Well, Mr. Chairman, it saved his time, but he called members of this committee liars, and I just want to know whether the order and decorum requirements of House Rule 11 apply to witnesses appearing before the committee.
Is he even allowed to say that in America?
Does it apply or does it not?
They have to check. Is he allowed to call Raskin a liar?
I don't...
No, interestingly, he told the truth, so he's not perjuring himself before Congress.
There's decorum from the members. We've asked for that. There's no language that I'm aware of pertaining to a witness.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. May I have another?
Make sure we didn't waste any of his time on the opening statement. Mr. Bobulinsky, I'm sorry for the disruption.
I'm sorry. He says he's going to give him extra time now. You have a little extra time now after what Jamie Raskin just did to you. Good for James Comer. Here, Comer gets into some questioning here early. Was Joe Biden involved in your business? Tony Bobulinsky, tell us, having managed a business with Hunter Biden.
Mr. Bobulinsky, was Joe Biden involved with any of your business dealings with Hunter Biden and James Biden? Was Joe Biden involved in his family's attempt?
He said yes, he was. Bobulinsky was having trouble remembering to turn his microphone on from time to time.
To sell their access to him.
Yes, he was.
You set out a form to form a legitimate business. You set out to form a legitimate business with the Bidens. Did you come to find out that the Biden family had no interest in doing real business?
I did.
I found out it was a big phony thing. It wasn't real. It was just about enriching the Bidens. Tony Bobulinsky also not shy about saying who lied to Congress, and among them, Hunter Biden.
Biden gave his transcribed interview on February 28th and lied throughout his testimony. Here's just one egregious example of Hunter's perjury. He lied to the committee on important details concerning his money demands and threats to CFC in text messages on July 30th and 31st.
I'm sitting here with my father.
2017. He leveraged his father's presence next to him in that infamous text to strong-arm CFC to paying Hunter immediately. Jim Biden also lied extensively throughout his transcribed interview on February 21st and perjured himself.
This isn't Washington speak, by the way. This is not normally how this is. Well, it was inconsistent with the record. That wasn't my impression. No, they're lying to you, says Bobulinsky. Hunter lied to Congress. Jim Biden lied to Congress, he says.
An example of that, on page 100 of his transcript, Jim is asked specifically, do you recall having a meeting with Hunter Biden, Tony Bobulinsky, and Joe Biden? Jim's response, absolutely not. The committee was so shocked by his perjury that they asked him the same question multiple times. Each time he denied meeting with me and Joe Biden. After the committee showed him text messages confirming that I met with Joe Biden, Hunter Biden, and Jim Biden at the Beverly Hilton in May 2017.
We showed him selfies that he took with the whole crew.
Jim Biden, with a former U.S. attorney lawyer sitting next to him, still denied that meeting took place.
We have a text message where you say, I'll never forget this meeting.
Hunter Biden, in his own transcribed interview, confirmed that that meeting took place. Hunter confirmed his uncle perjured himself in front of this committee.
Republican Congressman Gary Palmer would go on to say, hey, look, there's somebody who's lying to us. And these stories are all different. Tony Bobulinsky says one thing. Those Bidens, they say something completely different.
Mr. Chairman, it appears to me that there are material inconsistencies between the witnesses' testimony. These witnesses' statements appear to me to be irreconcilable. In short, Mr. Chairman, someone appears to be lying to the committee. The inconsistent testimony seems to come from Jim Biden, the president's brother. Lying to Congress is a serious offense, Mr. Chairman, a criminal one, in fact. And if the Bidens or anyone else has come before this committee and lied to this committee, I strongly encourage the committee to pursue criminal referrals to the Department of Justice.
Yeah, so there you go. So Republicans, summarizing this well, asking some good questions here, getting this out in public, in this public hearing, finally, with Tony Bobulinsky sitting there before Congress with cameras on him. Remember, he's the one who said that Joe Biden is the big guy, 1,000%. Jim Jordan asked him to reiterate that point today.
Mr. Bobulinsky, who's the big guy? Joe Biden. Are you sure about that? Because when
Jordan, Joe Biden.
You're sure?
I'm 1,000% sure.
Because he's still 1,000% sure. That's pretty sure.
When Hunter Biden did his deposition under oath, he said, I don't know who it is, even though he was copied on an email that said H will hold 10% for the big guy. You sure it's the big guy is Joe Biden?
1,000%. And there's other text messages that back that up, that the brave whistleblowers, Shapley and Ziegler, have produced, not from my phones, not from my BlackBerry that I took screenshots from. They took them from subpoenas directly from Apple's iCloud that back up the fact that Hunter knew the big guy was Joe Biden.
The big guy is the brand. The big guy is the lift. The big guy is the one who showed up at golf outings, who took phone calls and meetings and lunches and dinners with Hunter Biden and his business associates. Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah. All right. So that's what the Republican questioning sounded like, and that was illuminating. What did the Democrat questioning sound like? Stand by for Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez stepping on a rake and hitting herself right in the face. It's the best. Hey, AOC among the questioners today. She's got the wrong questions. She's awful, but hilarious, honestly, unintentionally so. She asked Tony Bobulinsky today, she thought she was going to, catch him or something. She said, are you saying you've seen Joe Biden commit any crimes? And Tony Bobulinsky answered, well, yes, ma'am, I have.
I have a quick question. Simple. Is it your testimony today that you personally witnessed President Joe Biden commit a crime?
I believe the fact that he was sitting with me while I was putting together a business deal.
Did you witness the president commit a crime? Is it your testimony today?
Yes.
And what crime have you witnessed?
How much time do I have to go through it?
It is simple. You name the crime. Did you watch him steal something?
Corruption statutes, RICO and conspiracy.
What is it? What is the crime, sir? Specifically.
He just named several.
Wait, you asked me to answer the question. I answered the question.
No.
RICO, you're obviously not familiar with. Corruption statutes.
Excuse me, sir.
I know RICO. Puerto Rico.
Excuse me, sir. RICO is not a crime. It is a category. What is the
It's a category of crimes that you're then charged with.
You have charges.
A long 100.
You have charges.
Theft is not a crime. It is a category. Murder is not a crime. It's a category. What is she talking about? Racketeer-influenced and corrupt organizations. RICO, it's about an organized crime effort. Joe Biden at the center of one, according to Tony Bobulinsky's eyewitness testimony. She says, is it your testimony today that you saw Joe Biden commit a crime? And he says, well, yes, it is. What crimes did you see? Conspiracy, RICO, FARA violations. How about bribery? How about he's taking money in exchange for official acts? How about bribery, which, by the way, is an impeachable offense?
Charges. Sir, please
Want me to name the exact statute under RICO?
Yes.
Well, it's funny. In this committee room, everyone's not here. There's over 18
All right, sir, I reclaim my time.
lawyers that went to law school.
I
I'll leave
reclaim
it
my
up to
time.
you guys
Okay,
to
thank
define
you,
the
sir. I
statute
reclaim my
under
time.
RICO.
Clearly, what we are seeing here today is a continuation of the 15-month saga of the Republican majority.
This is where she goes into a speech that she's not even quite sure how it's going to end, but she just knows she's got to burn the clock or else it's going to look really bad. So she does. She spends the rest of the time trying to burn the clock and not asking any more questions of Tony Bobulinsky, who it came loaded for bear. He's like, yeah, of course he committed crimes. RICO? She's like, yeah, of course I know RICO. Do you? Do you know RICO? I'm not sure you do. Jasmine Crockett, also one of the congresswomen today, out there acting ridiculous. She was something special. She was throwing attitude at Tony Bobulinsky today.
All right. First of all, Mr. Bobulinsky, do you know who Elections LLC is? Yeah.
Mike.
Well, it's not a who.
Okay. Well, do you know what it is?
Yes, it's a LLC.
Okay. And is it the LLC that your attorney works for?
I believe so, yes.
You believe so. Okay. So at this point in time, I'd ask unanimous consent to enter into the record a document indicating that the law firm representing Tony Bobulinsky was paid $10,000 as recently as January of this year by the Save America PAC, which you may recognize as Donald Trump's PAC.
Okay.
Without objection.
Thank you. Now, so far in this hearing, it has felt like the worst episode of The Apprentice. I'm sure you're familiar with that show. It seems like my colleagues and maybe you and some others are trying to become the next vice president of the United States of America. You're auditioning or something like that because,
what is she talking
Mr.
about?
Bobulinsky, I know that you take exception to the fact that your credibility has been called into question over and over. But when someone comes to testify under oath, whether it's before this
Okay, I'm sorry. At some point, he's like, are you going to ask me a question? And she's like, you'll know when I ask you a question. And he's like, what is even going on? Are you real? Are you a real person? How did you get into Congress? It's 3:30. Hey, good afternoon to you. 3:36 here. News Talk 105.9 WMAL. Coming up, Julie Jamin will be with us at 4 o'clock. She's an 80-year-old woman, 80 years young, who was a member of a YMCA, booted after she complained about a man being in the woman's locker room. Of course, she's the hero of this story. James Lynch will be here at 5 o'clock from National Review. We talked to him about that big hearing today featuring Tony Bobulinsky. And Alfonso Aguilar joins us at 5:30 from the American Principles Project about Hispanic voters and why they're headed towards Trump. You can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. It has been a whiplash 24 hours when it comes to the state of our border and the ability to enforce it. Yesterday, the United States Supreme Court, for a moment, seemed to be allowing Texas to enforce its state bill, Senate Bill 4, which became law, and it allows cops in Texas to arrest illegal immigrants and to deport them. And then the news overnight is that a circuit appeals court has now halted Texas's border enforcement laws. For more on what exactly is going on here and what can actually be done, I want to bring in Rob Law now. He's a Homeland Security and Immigration Director at the America First Policy Institute and a former senior policy advisor to President Trump. Rob, good to have you with us, sir. Thank you.
Yep, good to be with you today.
All right, so I've been encouraged by Texas's efforts. Somebody's got to secure the border. But at the moment, it seems we're back in a position where Texas isn't allowed to do that. What can you tell us?
Well, you're exactly right. What a whirlwind of emotions yesterday was. You go to sleep thinking that Texas is kind of stepping in for the federal government to secure the border, only to wake up to realize that the courts have prevented them from doing so. And again, to paint the picture for this Texas law would be completely unnecessary if the Biden administration was just doing their job, securing the border and enforcing the existing laws that have been on the books for years.
Right. Yeah, and Texas isn't doing anything to violate federal law. They're literally fulfilling federal law by virtue of having their law enforcement assist federal authorities in securing the border. In fact, Border Patrol agents the world over seem to be very happy with Texas helping them with getting control of the border. So how is Texas in trouble here?
Well, I think this is a misunderstanding about what this state law does. And you're absolutely right. The states cannot go above and beyond the federal standards where it is federal jurisdiction. But Texas is simply saying we are going to apply the equivalent of what the immigration laws say to do because the Biden administration has refused to do so. I feel like the courts are concerned that they are weighing into a political issue, and they typically try to avoid doing so by saying, oh, immigration is a federal thing, there's no state role. But that's just simply not true. There are numerous instances where the federal government actually utilizes state and local law enforcement officials as a force multiplier, such as something known as a 287G agreement, agreements with various detention facilities and prisons to temporarily house illegal aliens before they're deported. This is akin to the exact same sort of level of partnership that used to exist. And again, this all goes back to every single time Texas has taken courageous steps to secure the border, protect Texans, and really protect the entire nation, the Biden administration has run to court to prevent them from doing so.
Now, I know in the court arguments, in terms of how the Supreme Court's thinking about this, there's a lot of people have been bringing up a decision involving Arizona from the early teens that the court said that an Arizona law that dealt with immigration enforcement was unconstitutional. To what extent, how are these things overlapping, the Arizona law versus the Texas law now? And I understand that also Texas has been arguing, well, in fact, the Arizona decision should be overturned because that was wrong.
Well, I would certainly agree that the Arizona decision was ruled erroneously. And again, that was actually only a partial ruling. Part of that Arizona law was upheld. Nobody likes to talk about that, at least nobody that's for open borders,
right.
And those on the far left. That part of that law is actually still in effect today. I think these laws are distinguishable, but to Texas's point, it is wise of them to raise the issue of overturning Arizona v. U.S. because, again, this is not the states trying to create a new enforcement apparatus that is superior to what is the federal standard. It is merely the states having to step in and use state resources to do so because the Biden administration refuses to do so.
Also, isn't it the case that Texas has a constitutional right to protect itself here in light of the fact that they are being invaded? I realize that there's been some quibbling from the left about this. It's not an invasion. Well, what does it need to be an invasion? It's just, does everyone have to come from one country as an origin in order for it to be an invasion? Because right now we have people from every country on earth pouring across our border by the millions. At some point, it has to cross the invasion threshold.
Well, you're absolutely right. This is not just Mexicans or Central Americans coming across it. There's at least 150 different nations. But this is so typical of the left. They love to quibble with language, right? They don't call illegal aliens. In fact, they apologize to criminal illegal aliens for using that terminology. They call them non-citizens. They call them newcomers. This is the same progressive left that can't even define what a woman is. So what's happening is absolutely an invasion, and it's an invasion that the Biden administration has welcomed. They signaled to the world during the 2020 campaign, throughout the transition, and into the earliest days of this administration that if you want to come to the United States unlawfully, they will turn a blind eye and let you in.
Right, and so Texas, by virtue of the fact that the Constitution specifically says that a state that's being invaded is allowed to thwart that invasion, is that the case that Texas can prevail on before the court?
It'll certainly be tough. I think, again, citing the Arizona case and some other cases that have not gone, I'd say, the way of immigration enforcement advocates before the Supreme Court, it's definitely going to be an uphill battle. But, again, kudos to Texas for bringing the fight to this administration. It, again, should have been completely unnecessary to do so. But, even if this law is struck down, Texas and other states have other state-level enforcement mechanisms they can do. They can enforce their anti-human trafficking and smuggling laws. They can impose swift penalties at the state level for fentanyl trafficking and other elements of it. There's a way to be creative without specifically targeting immigration status, even though there is an immigration nexus to all this other criminality that is occurring as a result of the open border.
So I saw yesterday that the government of Mexico said, despite the Supreme Court ruling, the court came out yesterday, as we noted at the top, and said it's fine at the moment for Texas to arrest and deport illegals who come into their state. Mexico announced after that news came out that, no, we will refuse to take anyone back. No one is allowed to be sent into Mexico. To what extent does it even matter what Mexico says on this subject? And if President Trump were in office, how would this be different?
Well, I'll take those in reverse. If President Trump was in office, you would see strong leadership from the White House, and you recognize that the Mexican government is a transactional relationship. And you saw this when President Trump put in place the Remain in Mexico policy. Mexico didn't want that policy, but we did not need a formal agreement with Mexico. They just needed to go along with it. And after months and months of dragging their feet and refusing, through a tweet, President Trump said, all right, 10% tariffs on everything coming across the border starting Monday. And then all of a sudden, Mexican government called up and said, we'd love to talk to you about getting this set up. And so, again, when you see such defiant language from the Mexican government, it just goes to show you that the Biden administration is exuding weakness on the global stage. Mexico bears a lot of responsibility for this. Obviously, the primary responsibility is the Biden administration, but Mexico is refusing to secure its own southern border.
Yes.
They know that these illegal aliens are coming to the U.S., and Mexico is saying, we'll let you through as long as you very quickly move it. Don't linger, and definitely don't commit any crimes while you're here. But if you move through quickly and come get to the U.S. southern border, we will allow you to do so.
Well, exactly.
And again, that was another example. Yep.
And they're selling us out.
Yeah.
They're selling us out. So guess what? I don't care what you say. We're going to dump people right back into your country if they try and get in here. I mean, that seems to be – turnabout is fair play, don't you think?
Absolutely. And it's time that, the United States takes a far more aggressive posture with Mexico and said, how many billions of dollars are we giving them in foreign aid, in other sorts of, benefits? We give them, preferential trade treatment. We streamline, commerce across the border. And then they completely disrespect our own national sovereignty by allowing illegal immigration on their side of the border and then refusing to take people back that belong in Mexico or somewhere else, or at least that pass through Mexico on their journey to the United States.
Rob, I don't know if you have a number off the top of your head, but do you have a sense of how many illegal immigrants have poured into the country since Joe Biden became president?
Yeah, so it's an astronomical number. When you account for those that came across the southern border, those that have been flown in secretly, and then the nearly 2 million gotaways, We're looking at between 10 and 11 million illegal aliens in just slightly more than 3 years.
And
it's astonishing.
And obviously we're seeing some of the impact of the crime, and this week there's been a healthy debate elevated by Elon Musk and others about the electoral impact. When you have just that many human bodies in the country, it changes the electoral college, it changes congressional maps. What's the long-term impact of bringing in, say, 12 million people that quickly?
Well, certainly there's the impermissible balance of power shifting by giving blue states more representation. But you have schools that are overrun, as currently a K through 12 education is mandated for everybody, including the illegal alien children. Housing costs will go up as these people have to live somewhere, and you've seen once beautiful places like the Roosevelt Hotel been turned into illegal alien housing centers. People are losing taxpayer resources to illegal aliens, and you see that the legal residents of New York City, Chicago, and elsewhere are fed up and they're tired of their communities suffering that have been longstanding suffering, and now they're just being cast aside. Say, you just deal with your plight. We have got to care for the illegal aliens. There are numerous downstream negative effects of illegal immigration, and at this large of a scale, it's unsustainable, and it's really breaking the fabric of what it is to be the United States.
Yeah, it definitely is, which is why so many people are praying for a way out, voting for a way out this year. Rob Law, Homeland Security and Immigration Director over at the America First Policy Institute and a former senior policy advisor to President Trump. Thank you, Rob, for your time today. Really appreciate that.
Yep, thank you.
It's really a tragedy, isn't it? It's kind of the number one issue. You know, if you were president right now, what would be the top thing you would do? Well, secure the border, number one. Probably fire up American energy to unseen levels, number two, and bring about somewhere in there, even if it's not, even that's not number two. Secure America's safety. You know, make the streets safe again. That would be good. Stop printing money. There's a list for sure, but right up there at the tippy top is get control of our border, because you don't have a country if you don't have borders. How many times did Trump say that? A lot. He was right about that. You don't have a sovereign country unless you have discernible borders that can't be passed unless we, the American people, give you permission. And yet right now we have a full-blown invasion by illegal aliens from all across the planet, encouraged, supported by the left, excused by the left. It's very disruptive. And it goes right to what, like I mentioned, Elon Musk said this week, the electoral impact of this is huge. You have the federal government using your money, paying off these NGOs like Catholic Charities to bus all of these illegals to these major metropolitan markets, major city destinations, by and large, places like Chicago and New York and LA. And what does that do? Well, if you send people to Illinois, you're padding a blue state's human bodies. You're adding to the numbers there. And by extension, every 10 years, they're going to get more members of Congress for that state on the basis of bodies alone. And it's not just the bodies that are going there now by virtue of the invasion. It's the bodies that will exist that after people give birth to children. They'll have babies here in America who, by the way, will be American citizens, who, by the way, will be able to vote. And you will have that many more people. You were never, consulted on this. And you're growing Democrat electoral strength for the long term in that way. The same is true of the Electoral College. That means Illinois is going to have more Electoral College votes. That means New York is going to have more Electoral College votes. That means Washington, D.C., which isn't even a state, is going to have more Electoral College votes. That's just true. And that's the effect of it. And of course, not to mention the big one, which is the many, many billions of dollars that are involved in taking on all of the people who've just come into the country and are sapping all of our systems, state, local, federal systems, including the education system that Rob just mentioned, because the schools are taking in all the illegals, the hospitals are taking in all the illegals, and you're stuck with the bill in every one of those scenarios. It's insane. It's totally insane. And with a lot of prayers and a lot of votes, it can stop. Please. Okay, let's take a call real quick. Penny in Burke, line 1. Penny, good afternoon. You're on the Vince Colonnese Show.
Hey, Vince, thanks for taking my call.
Yeah.
I am absolutely incensed about this lower court seemingly countermandering the Supreme Court. And you've made it really clear that they're actually ruling on something that's slightly different. Mm-hmm. But people around the country, people in the Midwest, people out in the far Midwest, people in the South, they've had it with this, and they don't have any faith in our judicial system. And I think that John Roberts is to blame for this. I think that he should be admonishing that court and at least putting something out there to clarify to people that they are not countermandering the Supreme Court's ruling.
Yeah, I mean, what's going on here, the Supreme Court was not ruling on the merits of this case yet. They were asked to intervene kind of in an earlier portion of this. They paused the Texas law for a moment, then yesterday saying it's fine to continue as it works its way through the courts. That's when the Fifth Circuit jumped in yesterday and said, no, the law can't be in place, actually. Let's stop it. And you're right, it is. There's a schizophrenic element to it, which is nauseating. It's unfortunate. But I will say one of the good signs is Other states are now looking to follow Texas's lead here. Iowa is about to pass its own law for arresting and deporting illegal immigrants, set to go into effect very soon. I hope a lot more states follow suit. It's time to retake our country. That'd be a good thing. 358.